Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the future of technology in travel and hospitality. Let me just introduce myself. My name's Paul Richer, and I'm going to be your moderator for the day. I represent Travel Technology Initiative, and I'll tell you about TTI in a minute. Let me introduce our speakers over here. Nearest to me, just drinking, is Jose Murto. We think it's water, but it might be vodka. Jose is Global Head of Hospitality at Trivago. Hopefully it's just water. Next to him is David Chappell. David is Head of Technology at Grey Doors Group. And Grey Doors, as many of you will know, is a big travel management corporation. And then alongside him is Andy Mallinson. Andy is EMEA of Stackler. Hands up who knows what Stackler does. They're a social media aggregator, so we'll be hearing from Andy about social media. And last but not least, there's Guy at the end there, Guy Stevenson. He's Chief Commercial Officer for Gatwick Airport. And what I'll be doing, I'll be inviting all four of them to make a little presentation, each in turn. And then after that, we'll be asking questions of them. We'll have a little panel session. And in the panel session, we'll have a couple of microphones that'll run around. If you want to ask a question live, that'll be lovely. If you're feeling a bit shy, if I can say the word, we'll be using Slido.com. So on your mobile phone, you can go to Slido.com, and if you put in the code WTMLDN, LDN short for London, WTMLDN, then you can ask questions on Slido, and they'll come up on our screens, and I can then ask the speakers a question. Let me just tell you a little bit about Travel Technology Initiative for those of you who aren't aware of TTI. TTI is a European membership organisation, a not-for-profit organisation. It doesn't aim to make money. It aims to help the travel industry. In fact, you could describe it as an organisation that's for the travel industry, by the travel industry. And TTI has three main aims: education, helping travel people to understand this digital world in which we live in now a little bit better. And TTI holds twice yearly conferences and forums. So our most recent forum was on general data packet regulation. Hands up who gets excited by GDPR. There we are. Maybe we should have a GDPR forum this afternoon. Not many people do, but it's a very necessary thing to know about. We're in the business of networking as well, bringing travel people and technology people together at our events that we do. And then also TTI maintains a few technology, digital travel type standards. The most used one at the moment is TTI codes. And TTI codes are unique hotel identifiers, helping tour operators and others with multiple bed bank feeds, deduplicating those feeds. And TTI Places is a new initiative for TTI, which is going to be helping tour operators, online travel agents, and others define geographic areas, which will be fantastic for hotel searches. That's TTI in a nutshell. Any questions, come and talk to me. TTI's chairman, Tim, here, Tim Wright, who some of you will know is sitting right at the front. There are a little wave of a hand there. There is more of him, apart from the hand, but he's here. So that's lovely. So if you want to join TTI or know more about TTI, talk to Tim or me after the event. So let's start off with one of our four presentations. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Jose Murta from Trivago. Let's give him a little welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jose Murta. I'm the Global Head of Hospitality at Trivago. My role and my team's responsibility is to raise awareness of meta-search and meta-search marketing among the industry. And today, I'm here to talk to you about technology. And more importantly, how can hoteliers overcome the obstacles of adopting technology? So let's start by setting the scene and seeing what does the future look like. The future is obviously online. I mean, this is pretty given, right? The interesting fact is that still in 2017, hoteliers are not able to cope with the fact that they need to move fully online. They are still largely relying on offline bookings without understanding that they need to adopt technology and move online. This graph shows the last research done by Focusrite, pretty much telling that within the next 8 years, so in 2025, the gross majority of online bookings will happen online. And hoteliers will miss a huge, huge volume of business and opportunity if they don't move. If you look at the traveler's journey, 1 out of 2 travelers starts their online journey searching for a hotel online on metasearch. In countries like the US, for example, the number goes up to 85%. So they will come to metasearch, in this case to Trivago, they will search their hotel, they will find their ideal hotel, and then they will book. And in here there are obviously 2 choices. They will book via third party, so OTAs, or they will book via your hotel website. And at the end of the day, they will sleep at your hotel. So how can you really target these customers? How can you be close to them? You need to look at them and divide the traveler's journey and target them on each and every step of their journey. So why are hoteliers not adopting technology? What's keeping them from moving forward? We see 3 core reasons. Technology is difficult to access, booking engines are simply not competitive enough, and direct marketing channels are still too complex. Let's look at the first one. Technology is difficult to access, is still too expensive, and it's not intuitive. It's difficult to use. If you think in 2017, we still see technology that is given to hotels that requires them to have a hardware, that requires installation fees, maintenance fees, staff training, etc., 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 etc. Of course, this all adds up, and it becomes extremely expensive. And for the hoteliers that are actually able to afford this technology, they soon realize that it becomes obsolete very, very soon. The graph shows the adoption of technology by hoteliers in the US and Europe. It's from the same Focusrite report. Basically, in Europe, close to 50% of independent hotels do not have a mobile website. We are now already a mobile-first society. I mean, everyone has a cell phone, or actually a smartphone, not even a cell phone, a smartphone. But still, hotels do not see that they are missing a huge opportunity by not being able to be there. Close to 70% of hotels nowadays in Europe do not have a property management system. They still use pen and paper. This is a little bit insane. We're in 2017. And more concerning, 50% of independent hotels in Europe do not have an internet booking engine. So while the whole industry is talking about direct bookings, 50% of the hotels do not have a booking engine to facilitate the direct booking. And the other 50 that do have a booking engine, it's simply not competitive enough. It's not intuitive, it's not user-friendly, and it's filled with really poor content. Let's look at a real case example. A traveler comes to Trivago, makes a search, finds his ideal hotel, and clicks on the website of this hotel. And he will land in this landing page. Let's be honest. Would you book a hotel that had this landing page? Anyone? I wouldn't. I mean, first question is, where would I book? There's no book now button. Where is it? Is it on the down end of the page? Where is it? The pictures don't look good. So I come from a fully optimized website, super lean, to a ultra crowded page. And this is why users are not converting. The last point is direct marketing channels are too complex. And hoteliers obviously lack resources and lack marketing expertise. I mean, 15 years ago, who spoke about online marketing? Nowadays, it's a whole industry. And of course, the more it grows, the more complex it becomes. And hoteliers are simply not able, and it's understandable, not able to cope with the development of this industry. And the second reason, there are also no tailored solutions just for hotels. The direct marketing channels nowadays are made for companies in general, for rental cars, for airlines, for restaurants, for whatever it is, for hotels as well. But there are no tailored solutions just for hotels. And this results in a bit of frustration. So in the same study, when hoteliers were asked, what are the major concerns for you regarding direct marketing? They said, managing multiple channels, keeping up with the latest technology, because things are constantly moving, constantly evolving, and lacking qualified staff. So if the approach to direct marketing is already as pessimistic as this, of course, when asked about the effectiveness of marketing channels, direct marketing channels, the scenario is pretty bad. So close to 70% of hoteliers in Europe think SEM, search engine marketing, is not an effective medium. More than 90% thinks meta search is not an effective medium, even though meta search is actually where the traveler starts their journey, where they start searching for a hotel. What's the positive thing about this graphic? Is that there's a huge room for improvement, right? So how can actually hoteliers capitalize on a traveler's online journey? They have to maximize every stage of the journey in focusing on the 3 steps that a traveler makes when booking a hotel. The first one, the search part. You need to make your hotel findable. You need to be able to be discovered. You need to be on meta search. And when I say you need to be on meta search, not just, yes, if you work with one OTA, thank you, we will be on meta search, but is it really your hotel? You're relying on third parties to describe how you and your hotel should be? If you look at the content of your hotel, does it make sense? If you look at the descriptions, is it available in several languages? Are you targeting the people that you potentially could have in your hotel? Probably not. So first and foremost, look into meta search and optimize your profile. So the way you display your hotel to the world. The second point on the booking part. Yes, it is important, and we saw that 50% of independent hotels already have a booking engine, but it's not competitive. So make sure that you have technology, in this case a booking engine, that is competitive, that is optimized for mobile, for example, that is optimized in order to ease the booking conversion rather than make it difficult. Look at the content. Where is the book now button? Is it on top of the page? Is it at the end of the page? Where are the good quality pictures? And last but not least, when they stay at your hotel, please, this is 2017, stop using a pen and paper. There's just too much room for mistake. How frustrating you think it is for a traveler that booked your hotel to realize that his reservation was lost. And how time-consuming it is for you to handle all of these situations. So there are solutions out there, cloud-based property management systems that will help you streamline the operations of your hotel and allow you to have time to care about what's important, satisfying your guests. So what I want you to take out of this short presentation is just this. Start competing online. You know that travelers start their journey on meta search. You know that they will eventually somehow end up in your hotel. Now the question is, do you want to rely only on third parties to drive bookings to your hotel? Or do you want to overcome the technology obstacles and drive them direct? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jose, for that insight. And let's move on to the world of corporate travel now, ladies and gentlemen. Let's welcome David from Grey Doors.
The fun task of talking to you about challenges facing the corporate travel market. I'm David Chappell, Head of Technology for Grey Doors. My role at Grey Doors is primarily to look after both the soft and hard architecture of the group. In case you don't know Grey Doors, we are a sort of mid-sized TMC, somewhere just inside the top 20 of TMCs in the UK. Technology advancing corporate travel is a subject you could probably talk about for quite some time, but we don't have that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the pace of change. I think Vic Reeve said that all statistics are useless without a frame of reference. 80% of statistics are made up. So I think let's have a little look at just how quickly things are moving. Think of the Eurofighter Typhoon. Travels at 1,320 miles an hour. Well, that's great. But compared to the speed of light, is it fast? Is it slow? Can anybody tell me who this guy is? Anyone? Garry Kasparov, absolutely. I have to excuse my accent. Can anybody tell me what this is? Okay, if you don't know, it's Deep Blue. And in 1996, so 21 years ago, Kasparov and Deep Blue played chess. Now, look at the monitor. How old is that? Honestly, you could put your drink on top of it. In 1996, Kasparov fought Deep Blue, and Kasparov won. 4-2. It was the first time that a computer had ever beaten a human at chess. It marked sort of a change in the way that people started to perceive computers. Deep Blue, in 96, 21 years ago, could calculate 6.12 gigaflops. I presume you're all fully aware what a gigaflop is? No? Okay, a gigaflop is a floating point operation per second. It's a measurement of how quickly a computer can do something. And if in case you're wondering what that looks like, it's that many of those, which I'm sure you would agree is a metric shed load. How much does this stuff cost? To create a computer capable of calculating 1 gigaflop, just one. 1961, when Kennedy told the American people that it would put a man on the moon by the end of the decade, it cost $147,000 to create. Actually, no, it didn't. $147 billion to create a machine capable of 1 gigaflop. Fast forward yourself 21 years, as many years ago as it is to Deep Blue. Sir Clive Sinclair put out the rubber-keyed computing Lothario that is the ZX Spectrum. And it cost 43 million pounds or dollars to create 1 gigaflop of computing power. Now that's a change, a factorial change of 3,500 times in just 20 years. Drop of cost. So we go back at the ranch, 1997. Kasparov's back. And so is Deep Blue, but this time he looks like this. He's enormous. Eats cars like cheese. Okay, it doesn't. It looks like this. It's twice the size. It's twice the power. Can anybody tell me what happened in 97? Kasparov lost. Deep Blue won, 3.5, 2.5. The world was enthralled in an incredibly boring way. A man staring at a board for 5 days. But it marked, again, it was a landscape change in computing power. Deep Blue could calculate 11.38 gigaflops, which, in case you're keeping up, is this much. 2 metric shed loads. Okay, so Deep Blue wasn't the most powerful computer on the planet. That was a thing called the Hitachi SR2201, which could calculate 220 gigaflops a second. And look at the size of it. You could land a helicopter on it. So in 1996, Deep Blue, 6.12 gigaflops. 97, the following year, the Hitachi SR2201, 220. Who's got one of these in their pockets? Hands in the air, anyone? Not specifically the Galaxy, but a smartphone. Everyone? Everyone, pretty much? Who's got 2 in their pockets? I know, I can see a couple of people out there. So the S6, last year's sort of one of the top-end smartphones, 30.2. 5 times faster than Deep Blue from 20 years ago. Who's got one of these at home? PlayStation 4S Pro. As Paul rightly said to me, he bought his daughter one for Christmas. Oh, spoiler alert. 8,395 gigaflops. 8.3 teraflops. That is just loads faster, 40 times faster than the most powerful computer on the planet 20 years ago. Lovely. So what? Well, it's no longer the remit of governments or the military or fictional supervillains with a penchant for lasers and angry fish to have access to supercomputing power. It's in your pocket right now. And the cost of creating a machine capable of 1 gigaflop, just one. Anybody want to hazard a guess last year? Anyone? Don't be shy. 3 cents. Okay? That is 5 quadrillionths of the cost from 1961. I think you'll agree that is a truly extraordinary pace of change. What about the poor people who are having to use these things? Well, over time, I think it's fair to say that probably human performance hasn't improved that much. We may be better at storing things in our minds. We may be taught more sophisticated things, but the capacity hasn't really changed. People haven't really changed, but computers have. And the exponential rate of change of computing, we are here. And this is a really, really important time because we stand at a crossroads of intelligence in computing. The technology landscape is changing, irrevocably changed, not just in travel, but the whole world over. The whole concept of how you will design the architecture of a machine is changing. So what does that mean for our legacy technologies? Things like the GDS. I'm sure there's some people out there that think the GDS are powered by hamsters, or that their server cupboard looks a little like this. But in actual fact, I think the GDS still play a very important role within the corporate travel. If you're not, for the people in the room who don't know what a GDS is, it's a very large air aggregator, essentially. And they will continue to play a very important role in the industry to be that front-end aggregator of choice for a lot of travel management companies. Because there's companies out there who have neither the will or the finance to be able to build the aggregation that we will need to stay ahead of the curve of this pace of change. If you consider the little cursor, flashing cursor on a travel agent's screen, when it comes to that particular search, there are billions of outcomes. Billions. All the different airport codes that you could potentially put in at that point. All the different potential fares that you can return to an agent at the front end. The GDSs do that really, really well. ATP co-loaded content, that old school from point to point, is still very, very effective. But it may surprise you to learn that a major GDS announced in private, so I won't name them, quite recently, 40% of searches of that GDS are actually completed by machine learning. 40%, that's today. So the actual concept of technology and the way that technology uses what is now at the forefront is really changing. Travel technology itself is in flux. I'll throw up a few logos I'm sure you've all seen. Airbnb, Uber, your typical disruptors, Travelport Amadeus, large GDSs, your de facto JDS in someone like Travel Fusion. These people have hugely important roles to play, but will any one of them break the industry? No, I don't think so. These are mechanics of the machine, and the machine is changing. And the important thing is that you've got to stay ahead of that curve. What's one of the things that's really changed the industry over the last few years? Real-time geopositioning. The holy grail of a travel agent's life. Knowing where your traveller is up to the minute. It revolutionises the opportunity for upsell, cross-sell, relevant content. Walking through an airport, being able to see augmented reality, the kinds of things that, I don't know, connect your traveller with their Facebook feed. I can see you like fish restaurants because you've liked one in your feed. And I can see you're in New York and it's 8 o'clock in the evening, you've done your meeting, so you're probably hungry. And I can tell, because we've got a map of the restaurants, that there's a fish restaurant nearby. So maybe I'll send you a text and say, tell you what, round the corner there's a good fish restaurant. You fancy that? That kind of concept is not out this world. It's pretty straightforward, logically. And now we're able to connect all the dots. So the real change that will connect those dots, these chaps. Well, actually, not specifically that, although I do wish they would look like that. Things like DeepMind, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Those are the things that are really going to drive change in the industry. Fundamental architectural change. The drop in cost, if you remember that, $147 billion down to 3 cents. That change in cost is meaning that machine learning, artificial intelligence is becoming more and more cost-effective and accessible. It's not, as I said, governments, large corporation anymore. This is now just your everyday Joe can access this kind of technology. Chatbots may seem like a scary, sort of slightly insipid thing where you're not talking to a real person, but actually travel is an industry where we've got tons of grunge. People's booked on a flight. You've got a fare that you can't, well, you can change, but it's 20 quid to change. You can only change it to a certain class. Do we really want to invest the time of one of my valued members of staff to just perform that simple task? No. You can have a robot do that, and I don't think that devalues what that task is. Maybe I'll have my travel consultant spend their time doing something a little bit more effective, doing the more complex tasks that aren't available. You can personalize searches by demographic within machine learning. So you get the changes. I mean, there's websites out there right now that will decide the path that you take based on the searches that you make, not based on a prescriptive series of moves. This isn't stuff that's happening in the future. This is happening right now. You connect your data sets and you drive response efficiency. You drive efficiency within the business. These are the changes that are going to push forward in the industry. Can anybody tell me what this date is? Anyone? Anyone in the audience born after this date? Anyone? I hate you all for your youth and flexibility. 6th of August 91 was the day that Tim Berners-Lee published the first website, and it looked like that. So before that, no internet, no Netflix, no Google, no nothing. And you had the ability to still have somebody on for a number of days before they could actually look something up was still very much alive, and I miss those days. But that is epoch day in the connection revolution, the ability for people to be able to connect themselves. Because these are the people that we need to sell to. I want to say firstly that Generation Z or Generation Alpha are rubbish names. They don't mean anything, just they follow on from Z and from X and Y. These is Generation Connect. These are the people who are going to be the first completely connected generation, be it via social media, be it through LinkedIn, be it through the next big thing, through their messaging systems. They're not interested in keyboards. It's mobile. It's touchscreen. It's email. What? Instant message, please. These are the people that we need to be selling to. These are the people that no longer listen to brand loyalty. They will no longer take VW's word for it. They will take the word of some random dude or dudette that they've never met in another country who's left a post on a website with 5 stars saying that this thing is good. And I will believe that over anything else. These are the people that we need to provide to and provide it in an immediate way. And to do that, we need to leverage our data sets. We need to engage with the change of technology with machine learning. So corporate travel is going to have to climb Mount Aggregation. As a travel management company, I love the change in the industry at the moment. It's a hugely exciting time. All these things coming in that we can connect, that we can provide, that we can report on. We've got to give that access of products to our customers. And we have to be able to store the activity of that product. And then we need to be able to report on it accurately. Those things are core tenets within any travel management company now. It's no longer about booking tickets. Every single one of you in that audience can book a ticket, probably on their mobile phone with ba.com. Why do you need someone else to do that? It's because we're going to provide this stuff. But we also need to provide meaningful metrics. So go back to the Eurofighter Typhoon, 1,320-mile-an-hour aircraft, that's great. But so what? I saw a report where we're talking about reason codes for travel. I went on travel because I booked this aircraft because it was the only thing that was available. Well, how can you prove that after the fact? This sort of slightly dinosaurist choose from a list type reporting where travel management companies try to justify their reason for being through pie charts and spreadsheets. I just don't buy it. We've got data sets that we should leverage. We should put forward important metrics. How does the fare that you've purchased, how does that relate to the market or your peers in the market? If I'm looking at the benchmark fare for a given route on a given day. So leverage the data sets. And most importantly of all, travel management companies, we need to be open to change. But I could talk about it all day, and I'll let someone else get on. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for that insight. And you mentioned peer reviews, and that's part of social media. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Andy, who will be telling us more.
Nicely. Yeah. So I feel slightly out of my depth because I actually never even knew a gigaflop existed, let alone what cost it was in 1961. But thank you for that, David, and thank you for teaming me up with the peer reviews at the end there. So the purpose of today's presentation is to tell you about the powerful role that user-generated content has got to play in your marketing strategy. And actually how it can fuel that entire booking cycle which we talked a little bit about earlier in earlier presentation as well. So everything from the inspirational stage through to purchase and all the way back round again. For those of you in the audience that didn't put their hand up when Paul said, does anyone know Stackler? I'll very quickly tell you just one slide on Stackler. We're an enterprise-grade content platform. We specialize in user-generated content. That's all we do. And we enable our clients to harness the authenticity of customers' own content, right? Typically, but not exclusively, social content, and use it across that entire customer journey through every single touch point, from web to email, digital billboards, social ads. We've been going for around 5 years, started in Sydney, Australia, and our platform's been used by over 450 brands around the world, and travel is a particular sweet spot, not just for UGC, but for Stackler in particular. So onto the topic of today. So the specific focus is really about travel marketing and the role that technology has got to play in that. More specifically, I'm obviously going to talk about user-generated content and how technology is actually helping brands connect authentically with their audience and their customers. And my argument is, and we had the slide earlier as well, that the future is actually, it's already here. This is an image here from a pop-up store that Visit Scotland opened in London, and it's the world's first Instagram-only travel agent. Pure UGC, no stock images, all right? And it's obviously, you'd be pleased to know, powered by the Stackler platform sitting behind it. But that was a world first, and that was about 3 weeks ago that they launched that. So I'd like to actually propose that in the future, and by that I mean now, travel brands need to stop creating and start curating. Quite difficult for someone that actually can't pronounce their R's particularly well. So harness that amazing content that's going to be posted by the likes of you and I, and instead of relying on, I guess, traditional brand-centric marketing, usher in a new era of customer-centric marketing, where brands market with people as opposed to marketing at them. Now, if there are any brand marketers and content creators out there, before you stand up and throw your iPhones at me, I'm not actually suggesting that branded content doesn't have a role. Of course it does. All right? It's about a blend of the two. All right? But I guess the dramatic effect wouldn't have been quite so strong if I'd said curate and create. However, if UGC is not part of your travel marketing plans in the next 12 months, then you are absolutely in a minority. And as I mentioned before, the future is already here. So in the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to talk to you about why UGC is so powerful. And there are many reasons, but I'm going to focus on just 3. And we're going to start with the obvious one, which is authenticity. So in the past few years, even 10 years actually, there's been a bit of a perfect storm happening. It's been a collision of enabling technologies that have created this sharing ecosystem. So on the one hand, we've got the hardware, we've got GoPros and iPhones and the like. And on the software side, we've got the Twitters and Snapchats and Sinaweebis of this world. And those two things colliding together, those two enablers, actually mean that we are sharing our thoughts, our photos, our experiences, our dinner from last night, at an ever-increasing rate. And whilst companies may come and go in that space, so think Nokia, Google+, Vine, the underlying cultural shift is here to stay. And marketers are starting to take advantage of this. So historically, brands have created fairly unreal ads with shiny, happy people, perfectly white teeth. Whereas now, shiny, happy customers with perfectly white teeth are making content for brands. And I can say that because the guy on the right there is our co-founder, not the guy on the very far right, the guy in the middle of the far right. But spending on branded content is still going through the roof. And why? Well, because brands are trying to keep up with the amount of content that's required to service the increasingly personalized messaging that is required and demanded by customers. But I'll come back to that in a minute. The problem with branded content is that it's getting ignored. It's getting ignored by the social networks, such as Twitter and Instagram, who are increasingly using a pay-to-play method. And it's also getting ignored by customers. So customers who are demanding more authenticity and more relevance. UGC, on the other hand, isn't getting ignored, it's getting noticed. And not only is it getting noticed, but it's also driving trust, driving authenticity, and ultimately sales, which is why we're all here in the end. And it makes sense, right? Because people trust people more than they trust brands. Because customer stories are genuine and believable. And people are increasingly demanding that highly personalized and relevant experiences. And brand messages are just not cutting through the way they're used to. Luckily, with UGC, there's a huge amount of content out there to take advantage of. 2.5 billion pieces of content daily at last count. And I think that's just Twitter and Instagram, actually. Which does bring me neatly onto the second benefit of UGC. And that is the benefit of personalization of content at scale. And this is where technology really starts to take over. So I talked earlier about the fact that marketers are trying to have more of a one-to-one relationship with their customers. That ideal segmentation of one-to-one. All right, and big data means that we almost have an infinite amount of content available at of information available at our fingertips. But what's the point of having all of that information if you only have enough content to do the very basic levels of personalization? Personalization needs content, and big data needs big content. So UGC is not only authentic, but it also allows you to do that at scale. And personalization is no more important than in the travel industry. So travelers are inspired by experiences that they can visualize themselves enjoying. The beauty of traveler-generated content, and maybe we should coin the phrase TGC, is that it's being created by every type of traveler you can imagine, all with vastly different styles and vastly different interests. And by showcasing people experiences that they can relate to, in other words, content created by travelers with similar interests, similar tastes, similar profiles, then it ignites passion and it drives action. And the results are exponentially better. And UGC can provide that content at scale without having to create it. And this is where technology can come in. So sticking with the theme of content at scale, I talked earlier about how much UGC there was out there, right, which is a great thing, but it's also a challenge. It's a challenge in that sometimes you just have too much content. And this is where enterprise technology can help. And I'm pleased that we've already had a presentation out there that talked about AI and machine learning, because it'd be wrong to have a presentation without it these days, it would seem, and here is my slide on it. So using predictive recommendation engine, you can help filter or triage a huge volume of content, presented to you with a recommended set of that content for you to publish, freeing up time for marketers to focus on more strategic work. I'd like to see something else there. Okay. And as you can imagine, Stackler has its very own content recommendation engine. We call it Copilot. All right, and it uses automatic visual recognition to scan and auto-tag every image, including logo recognition. All right, and it then matches images with posts that you've already published. So it's learning all the time and starting to make those recommendations. Right? In addition, it analyzes the performance of that content, such as views, clicks, shares. Right? And it feeds that data into the machine. One of our customers, Cirque du Soleil, ran tests and found that Copilot cut out moderation time by 75%. And it meant that they could actually manage 10 times more content, and they have a huge amount of content. As we say, better content, less effort. And moving on to the final benefit of UGC, one that we all love, reduce costs. So since Stackler's tagline is let your customers tell your story, I thought I'd actually take a leaf out of our own book to demonstrate this. So the first way of reducing costs using UGC is through more effective and more impactful advertising. We have many customers, including Air France, Crown Resorts, and in this case, Hamilton Island, part of Visit Queensland, successfully using UGC instead of branded content in social and display ads. And when they A/B tested UGC versus branded content, they achieved a 3 times higher click-through rate and a 66% or 2/3 reduction in the cost per click using UGC. I think they call that a win-win. And the second way of reducing costs is through reducing your content creation costs. So whether you're displaying real-time feeds of beautiful content on your website or putting UGC into your email and your digital billboards, UGC is not only effective, but it's cost-effective. As I mentioned earlier, the demand for this more personalized content and therefore the requirement for more content is increasing. And it can get frighteningly expensive to create that ever-increasing volume. Esther at Visit Scotland sums it up very, very nicely, and she often tells us it is impossible to take a bad picture of a castle and a lock in Scotland. So almost all of the imagery they use on their website is user-generated content. So finally, just to wrap up, we discovered how powerful user-generated content is, and that there's smart tools out there and technology out there to help filter the huge volume of content so that you find the right content for the right audience. The final thing to look at is how that fuels the booking cycle. And I would say that it powers that whole cycle. Whether you're at the inspirational stage, where Facebook ads and digital out of home will play a role, through to the research phase with UGC on every single destination page, every single hotel page. And that social advocacy right at the point of booking, where you can see other people who are currently, right now, in real time, enjoying the location where you want to go. And of course, completing that cycle, taking part, right, sharing content back into the process. UGC has got the ability to fuel that cycle and move your customers effectively from each section to the next. So thank you for your time. I'd like to say that the future of travel marketing is already here. You just need to start curating rather than creating. My final plug is that we've just released a comprehensive guide to building an effective UGC strategy. Contains everything from how to start a UGC campaign through to the metrics that you should be measuring, and of course some real-life case studies, and it's available at stackler.com. And I welcome any questions as part of the panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy, for that insight in social media. That's great. And then last but not least, let's welcome Guy from Gatwick Airport.
Thanks, Paul. Good afternoon, everybody. Real gear change. Airports, by comparison to a lot of the stuff we talked about this afternoon, really quite different. But I always like to know my customer. So, hands up who's travelled through Gatwick Airport in the last 12 months. Oh, there's a lot of you. Well-travelled people. So I can't blag this one, Paul. because you've all experienced the airport and all it has to offer. But let me just give you a few facts to start with and talk to you about how technology is shaping our world. So, one big thing that happened about 8 years ago was the BAA was broken up. We live in a competitive environment. That competitive environment really has driven a huge amount of change, particularly in the London airports. All 6 airports in London are now under separate ownership, privately owned. Driving investment, driving competition, driving change. And you'll see here that we've actually grown during that period by 50%. You know, our land take isn't any bigger. We still have 2 terminals. We have to do things very differently. You cannot continue to invest for your marginal customer in the same way. It just gets very, very expensive. So you have to think very differently about how you do business. And we've spent over £1.5 billion of CapEx trying to affect that change. But our big challenges and opportunities out there, first of all, very strong demand, growing by 50%, very constrained infrastructure, therefore we need to do things differently. Online competition's affecting what is going on in our shops. I make money in our shops, I make money with car parking, online competition very strong. But fundamentally, the consumer landscape is changing so much and consumer expectations are so high now that we have higher barriers and higher hurdles to meet. But in the end, what we're doing has to meet the needs of our customers. So whatever we do, in the end, has to deliver for people. So here's a few facts. We are the world's busiest single runway airport, which means we have to, as I say, work with extremely constrained assets. And some of the stats here are for airport people, but we do have the largest network of any UK airport as well. But how do we know what we're doing is the right thing? So back 5 or 6 years ago, we asked our customers, what's the most important thing for you? And at that time, queuing, was a real pain in the neck. Sorting out your core airport processes was the key issue. And we spent a lot of time making sure that technology was driving to that end state. In 2016, we redid that survey. And the fact is, we'd moved people away from the queuing issue because actually we'd gone a long way to solving that. I'll explain a bit more about that in a minute. It was more about how can I be in control? Are you giving me control of my airport experience? That was the key issue. Technology was really there to personalize that experience and give customers control. And we have a lot of very, very tech-savvy people walking through our airport every day. And what is our philosophy? We've got a 3-pronged approach here. One is the physical infrastructure, the environment within which people sort of experience the airport is absolutely key. Spend a lot of money on that, make people feel that they're valued by giving them a good place to be. As I say, a lot of money spent on that. The digital journey is what we call that personalized experience. What are we doing to empower, to get control into people's hands? And also that allows us to make money as well. But in the end, what we call the emotional journey is people's response to that. We want people to be our advocates. We're a competitive business. We want people to choose to travel through Gatwick. So if they've had a good physical and digital journey and they've been through our touch points with people who are responding in a friendly manner to them, they will be our advocates. Their emotional journey, their response to that will be very strong. That's exactly what we're looking for. And I'll show you at the end of my presentation how we think we've affected that. But technology has fundamentally changed our core processes at the airports. And on the left-hand side, you see a very, very complicated baggage system and making baggage work, making people not have their baggage left behind is a key issue. So we spent a lot of money on that. But the front-of-house stuff, really the check-in and the security areas and the immigration areas have also received a huge amount of technology upgrade. We now have the world's largest automated bag drop at Gatwick Airport. You wouldn't have thought that. But in our North Terminal, if you're traveling through EasyJet, that is the largest span of automated bag drop desks anywhere in the world. And has transformed a check-in experience from around about half an hour to an average of 4 to 5 minutes. 4 to 5, not 45. It's a transformational change, and it happened overnight as we moved into that new process and new technology environment. On the right-hand side is what we basically was a Europe-leading technology change in our security area. And what that enabled basically was not just a hugely better experience in the cutting of queues, But also, as we moved into different generations of technology, it allowed me as the commercial director to benefit from that as well. So not only did the customer have a much better experience, but also the productivity of the airport improved significantly. So we moved, for example, our metric is trays per hour. In the old world, 150 to 200 trays per hour. With our latest generation of security technology, it's 700 trays per hour. That speeds the process up. That is way beyond any airport in the world with the security process is doing. So that transformation has meant that we can consistently deliver about 98% of customers going through in less than 5 minutes, which aids that predictability. Can I predict? Do I have control over the process? It's coming through in the security areas. But also, it reduced our footprint on security. So the same size terminal, less footprint on security, gave me 1,200 square meters of food and beverage space. So a win-win-win all round was developed through that technology. And immigration, people hate being held up in immigration queues. We've invested in 15 of those in each of our terminal. Transaction time, you've probably been through them. 20 seconds, something like that. The queue moves very rapidly through there, and that's a much better experience. I'll quickly go through some of the other things. Real-time queue monitoring. These are heads, basically, in a check-in area, and we can see them moving in real time. That information can go to the airlines, it can go to the handling agency, and they can respond very quickly, and it gets measured so that reports go out to the people involved in the process so that they can forensically look at their resource planning and get it right. This is all sorts of data that we provide them. Passive Wi-Fi, our buildings are there, but we don't want them to be unintelligent. We want them to send back information about how people move through them. So we're about to launch a new passive Wi-Fi process, which effectively tags people's iPhones which are connecting up to the Wi-Fi. We find out where they're going. It's all anonymized, so there's no GDPR issues involved in it. And it allows us, again, in real time to respond to queues. It allows us to see what's going on, bottlenecks. We can spot what's going on from the railway station through check-in, allows us to resource up the check-in, allows us to resource up security, so that we can spot these change flows going on. And also, we can use that effectively to say to our concessionaires, these are the hotspots of the terminal, these are not hot. How do we move people around better so that more of the concessionaires, more of the retailers are benefiting? How can we sell the advertising space in a better way because people know where people are and how they dwell and where they dwell? Very, very interesting development for us. Again, it's about productivity. We can make better use of our infrastructure by being intelligent about it. Also, the app. We have a community app. Basically, everybody on site, there's 24,000 people work on site at Gatwick Airport, all have the ability to use this app. It's exactly the same information in real time available to everybody about everything that's going on at the airport. It's massively improved communication, massively improved customer service, and it's award-winning. So Digital Awards 2017, a whole bunch of awards won there. We won the Digital In-House Team of the Year as well because of that app. Has made a huge improvement. Real-time data on the airfield. I mean, people quite like knowing what's going on behind the scenes at airports because all you see is the kind of front of house bit. The airfield is a very, very complex, safety-orientated place. And there's a huge amount of data that's swirling around there. And it needs to be coordinated so every participant in that chain is working effectively in a coordinated manner to deliver on-time performance for the customer safely. A whole bunch of data gets shared in real time with the handling agents. Basically, this is all dummy data because I can't give you the real stuff. But look at the amount of handling agents we now have at the airport. They all need to have that real-time data, all need to communicate with each other and with us and know what's going on. When it comes to the customer as well, we know we have a £75 million per annum car parking business as well as a huge £165 million retail business. The customer is very, very important to us. We want to communicate with them in new ways, and we're just now implementing new platforms, not only for customer service and feedback, which we've just implemented last week, but also we're going to be putting a new CRM platform in, a new e-commerce platform, and we're also launching our app in Android and iPhone at the end of this month. And we're doing that late in the cycle because we wanted to make it the best we could. We didn't want to go in with an app that's a half-baked app. This is going to be a cracking airport app that will allow us to do the things that David mentioned, which is when you walk through the airport, eventually, on further iterations of our app, you would have the airport communicating with you in relevant terms about the point in your journey that you're at. But it's also allowing you to filter that out. So it's not giving you information that you don't need. Personalizing the airport experience, I mentioned the app, and also our, it's not a rewards program, it's basically an instant value engagement program called My Gatwick. My Gatwick has gone from about 3 years ago to now, it's now our biggest generator, for example, every month of car parking revenue. And it is the way that people get personalized offers as well. And this is something that's also the Gatwick has pioneered and revolutionized. Connecting travel at airports, typically between consenting adults, effectively airlines who have interline arrangements. Well, we don't have that at Gatwick. We have a very, very diverse and dynamic airline base at Gatwick, from the full-service carriers like British Airways, Virgin, Emirates with the A380s, through to leisure airlines like Thompson, a huge low-cost base, EasyJet, Ryanair, Norwegian, regional airlines. Massive different business models. And what this has allowed us to do is to connect them up so that you can book in one single transaction via a meta search engine, two completely different airline PNRs in one transaction. It's a protected connection, so we would look after the customer if something goes wrong, and by virtue of having that protected, the Skyscanner and people like that rank us exactly the same as any other interline transaction. So this is pretty groundbreaking. And also we launched with EasyJet something called EasyJet Worldwide, a world first, which is EasyJet basically doing it through their website using our Gatwick Connect product. So huge changes that are going to happen in this industry over the next 10 years. It's clunky at the moment, but technology will solve this. You will be able to book in one single PNR eventually, an EasyJet and an Emirates booking. No question. We're starting that process now. New frontiers, a whole bunch of things we're working on. I won't go through them, but machine learning, chatbots, working with Alexa, for example, on voice customer services, hoovering up a huge amount of information that we have, data, and going into these kind of machine environments. Inspections with drones, biometrics is a massive part of the future of how people are going to go swiftly through airports, autonomous vehicles on the airfield, peer-to-peer things going on. You know, when you bring your car into the car park, actually, we're doing a trial that will allow you to rent that out to somebody else, if that's what you elect to do. Car park robotics. Instead of having people sort of driving your car off, we'll have a robot pick it up and take it to its parking place as well. And that is going to happen. It's going to happen next year. So, technology, it's all fine, but what in the end is the point? The point is the customer getting a great experience? Are we competing better? And also, it's our people that contribute to that. And we can't ignore that. The technology world is all very well, but in a very, very physical environment like ours, our people matter. The processes matter. It's not just the technology, it's all these things coming together to make it work. And in the end, I'll just leave with our customer satisfaction. So back from 2008 to 2016-17, quality of service monitoring has seen a steady rise. So all the things we've been doing have had outcomes for customers, and they've reflected that in all the research we do in terms of customer satisfaction. Net Promoter Score averaging around about 40, and again, that purple line at the top is this year's score. So continuing to improve NPS, customer satisfaction is the end game. And thankfully, because we are very, very ambitious to be the most technologically advanced airport in the world, part of that is contributing to the fact that we got 2 great awards this year in terms of being Airport of the Year. I'll leave you with that, Paul. Thanks very much indeed, and happy to take questions.
Thanks, Guy. Thank you, Guy, for that. And it's question time, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, the presentations, I don't think, Jose, I don't think we do so with Trivago, but the other 3 presentations will be available on TTI's website in about a week or so at tti.org. Who'd like to ask the first question? You can put your hand up and a microphone will run round, or you can go to slido.com and use the tag WTMLDN. Anyone want to kick off? Well, while you're thinking, Jose, let me just check with you, because we take our acronyms technology for granted. Can you just tell people what meta search is as opposed to other kinds of search?
So meta search is pretty much an aggregator. So basically it's a website that aggregates several websites. In this case, or in the case of Trivago, we're a hotel meta search. So we basically go around the internet and we aggregate information, so content, images, prices from hotels, from OTAs, from hotel chains, etc., in order to show to the user just in one single point all the information available.
So a hotel that might have a deal with an online travel agent, let's take Booking.com for example. Booking.com would transact the booking. If a hotel was being seen on Trivago, would you be passing that customer through to the hotelier? Is that how it works?
So the way
or is Trivago actually just another booking engine?
No, we're not. We're definitely not. I think that's a core difference. We're definitely not a booking engine. We're not an OTA. So we are just forwarding leads, so users, to our advertisers. In this case, it can be Booking.com or Expedia, but it can also be the independent hotel website or a hotel chain, for example.
Okay, fine. And you can see on Slido, Andy, there's a question for you there, and it's one that I had in mind as well. If you're bringing all this user-generated content into your own website, are there problems with permissions on that? Because you actually use the word curating and then publishing other people's content.
So
I assume it's not a problem, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But
I wouldn't be in a job. So, so there's two ways to answer that. If you're looking primarily at your own media like your website, then actually republishing content that is publicly available on the social web is absolutely fine. And when you sign up to Twitter and Instagram and you post publicly, then part of those terms and conditions actually say that that can be replicated. If as a client you are publishing that content onto paid media, then it's a grey area, and we would strongly recommend to all of our clients that they rights manage that content. And there's a module within Stackler that allows you to do that at a click of a button. So it reaches out to the originator of the content saying, hey, I love that photo, can we use it in our marketing? And they reply using a certain hashtag that you specify, and the rights are then collected and gathered, and it's put into a rights managed media library.
Have any of your clients had problems where they've had emails or letters from people saying, why the hell are you using my picture? Not asking me? Or was that effect?
There will be some, but not that we are aware of it. And the beauty of any platform like this is that, and this is part of GDPR as well, is that content can be removed immediately. I'll use an example of Virgin Holidays. So Virgin Holidays did a campaign recently where they actively encouraged their customers to post using hashtag #SeizeTheHoliday when they're walking along a beach. So walking along a beach in Barbados, you post your picture, it comes into the Stackler platform. Virgin Holidays would rights manage that immediately in real time, saying, love your photo, reply, hashtag Virgin yes. It would come in and it then get immediately published, and in this case it got published out to the London Underground digital out-of-home signs saying, taken today at 2:37. And that was rights managed in real time and used, and all those people on the London Underground that wish they were on a beach in Barbados wanting to book.
Okay, instead of on the escalator. Anyone want to put their hand up at all? David, let me ask you a question. Your name's mentioned there somewhere, but let me ask you my own question, because you showed us how much computing power is moving forward, and we talked about the use of computing power for artificial intelligence and machine learning. In the world of corporate travel, where people are just going about their business, do we actually need much in the way of personal service in the coming years, or can we really highly automate business travel? And I'm just thinking about the olden days before ATMs, cash machines were around. We went into a bank and we asked a human being for some money, they gave it to us, and we all got very used to actually using cash machines now. We don't want to talk to people anymore. Is that going to happen in corporate travel, do you think?
I think
if we have a few more gigaflops?
I think personalisation is a very interesting thing within corporate travel particularly. It is, certainly in my opinion, it's something that's going to drive the differentiator between the different travel management companies. I think fundamentally anyone can book travel. can book a flight, you can book a plane, you can book a hotel, and those aren't technically difficult tasks. I think what's important is being able to offer relevant content at the point of sale quickly. And as the sources of content proliferate, so you have these I mentioned this on my last slide, the climbing of mount aggregation. I think as the number of sources grow, you've got to be able to narrow that down very, very quickly. And personalization, storing preference, either be it by profile or be it by supposition through an AI engine, I think is going to be absolutely key to the growth of the efficiency of agents as they go forward.
So do you see a big agency like Grey Doors, as you adopt more and more technology, I know you're responsible for technology there, actually being able to reduce staff headcount as a result?
No, I don't think it's about reducing staff headcount, although you could argue that there would be a case if you made a process suitably efficient that you could. But I think it's more about taking the grunge, the repetitive tasks that don't require a particularly sophisticated thought train to achieve, taking those pieces out, making them available through a chatbot or some other automated environment. I mean, the flight change, the time change is a really good example where you could have an individual wanting to change their ticket. Their ticket only allows them to change to a certain smaller subset of aircraft or availabilities that are out there. They're in a different time zone. Why do they want to wait until the UK comes online, just for example, to be able to call their agent, when you could easily have a bot answer those questions, because they can look in the fare table and they can see the change conditions, they can put that forward, they can see the available aircraft. Well, if the consumer is happy to go ahead with that change, you can click go and off it goes, and they can get on with their day, and you don't need to engage a consultant in doing that. I don't really see where the value in using a person to do that is, when you can use that person more effectively on the more sophisticated itineraries, the places where they can add greater value. So I don't think it's about driving down headcount as such. I think it's more about placing resource in the appropriate places. It's a very low margin industry. So
Good. Yes, it is. Yeah, that's right. It's about efficiency. And Guy, that brings us on to Gatwick Airport, because you mentioned how much, I think 50% increase in the last few years in traffic. Traffic, I mean passengers. And has there been much in the way of staff change, staff numbers across the whole airport, as that number of passengers has been increasing?
Yeah, staff numbers have gone up.
Okay.
But one of the things about airports is they're very operationally geared. So we have relatively low increases in marginal cost as customers go up. So yes, we have put a lot of staff in. Interestingly, we put a lot of staff into IT. I think when the airport was purchased in 2009, I think at the time those who were buying the airport thought actually it would be the reverse, that they would see a lot of outsourcing, but actually insourcing our IT has been the way to go, because we've done it more effectively and at better cost, and we can move faster. So that's part of the reason that the numbers have gone up. We've just decided how to resource our business most effectively, and yeah, numbers have increased.
And you'll see the question down there. It says, are you developing software in-house, or are you working with external software providers? Was a question for you. And because your investment is so enormous in technology that is it something you're doing in-house? Have you been building teams in-house, or are you making use of external providers?
Yeah, we make use of external providers mostly.
External providers,
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
There was another question there about the importance of our infrastructure. And one of the things I didn't say during the presentation, because we're talking about, I suppose, things that are exciting about the future, is what we call our stable operations. Basically, we need to keep the place running and have very, very stable IT technology and process infrastructure, because such is the speed of throughput and the constant flow of passengers, that stable operations is the key thing for our airport. Forget the sexy stuff. If you can't operate your airport stably, then you've got a problem. So IT infrastructure, absolutely critical.
Okay. Jose, a question for you just before we come back to Slido. You showed us a chart where 25% of hotels have a mobile app, so 75% don't. do hotels need a mobile app, or can they live happily without? I know, of course, they need a mobile responsive website. There's no question about that, and you mentioned that. But what about mobile apps for hotels?
No, I don't think they would definitely need it. I think it's more important, responsive websites, making sure that you are available where the traveler is searching for you. It's crucial, but a mobile app, not necessary. It's a nice to have, but not necessarily. I mean, especially for smaller hotels. If we talk about bigger hotel chains and etc., where you get then loyalty programs and all of these things, then it might make sense. But for an independent hotel, it's just an add-on that just adds complexity, and the outcome is pretty much...
So the focus actually is on the booking end.
Yes.
I'll tell you why I ask that, because of course there's a trend now that hoteliers ought to be owning the trip a bit more. When a guest checks into a hotel and gets their key, or maybe they just get a code on their mobile phone, whatever it is, and check into their room, there's an opportunity for a hotel to more own the trip, to make sure that the hotel helps a guest find the right restaurants in the area, go to the right cinemas, the right theatres, to the right sightseeing. I suppose it's the concierge kind of thing that maybe hoteliers might be tending to ignore a bit in the face of automation. Isn't that where a mobile app might score?
It might, but the point here is, if we're talking about independent hotels, and if you stay in several different independent hotels, how many apps will you install in your mobile? Realistically, right? If you stay in 10 different hotels, will you have one different app for each hotel you stay in? No. So I think that looking at the app perspective is more, again, it's not the right priority. Maybe in the future it might become more relevant, I think, with companies, with bigger companies betting a lot on apps and on these concierge services and etc. So hotels having a head-on onto these concierge services, definitely, but their own mobile app, I just do not see it.
Okay, good. Thank you for the advice. Andy, just back to you. I know here at World Travel Market we have quite a few sessions on social media and blogging. And I suppose bloggers are paid influencers. There are whole sessions on blogging here. Does UGC trump blogging? Is blogging moving away or waning as a way of influencing people to do business with you?
I'd like to say yes, but it's not. If you look at content creation, and I talked about it a little bit in the talk I gave, you've probably got branded content at one end, you've got UGC at the other end, and you've probably got influencer marketing sitting in the middle. And as you move from branded through to influencer to UGC, your authenticity goes up. So influencer's sitting in the middle somewhere, and the bad rap that influencer is getting at the moment is principally around the lack of transparency around an influencer and whether they're paid to promote. And I think the best bloggers are, certainly in the travel space, are very transparent about that. And so with that transparency, it gets authenticity. UGC arguably is micro-influencer to the nth degree. It's individual people on the streets who are giving their opinions about things. They're not paid to give their opinions on things. They just want to give their opinions on things, whether that's a picture of the food they ate for dinner or a beautiful sunset in Bali. Right? It's the same thing.
So does your technology actually gather paid influencer content as well as other UGC content?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, just out of interest. David, you were looking at the future a little bit, and you'll see mention there of Alexa and other. I've got a few Amazon Echoes at home that I use. I'm sure you have umpteen of them. And do you actually see this new voice technology changing the way that people go about researching travel? Because at the moment, I wouldn't dream of using my Echo to do anything for travel whatsoever. But do you see that changing?
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely the future. If you look at the changing modes of engagement of consumers over the last sort of 20 years, you've gone from, walk into a high street and speak to a person, onto your websites and touchscreen, and it's just a natural progression. The trust of technology grows, but not only that, the capability of technology is exponential. You saw the graph with the spike going through the human line. I think ultimately, the holy grail of people like Alexa and Google is that you say, Alexa, book my holiday for next year, and that's it. Off trots Alexa and does it. And I think that that's a realistic goal because, ultimately, if you give it enough information within the different connected points, you can perform that task.
Well, that's interesting because at the start of the internet, I was actually saying in 25 years' time, we won't need travel agents anymore. We'll have these... do you remember we were quite into intelligent software agents then? Who remembers that kind of... And what was the company out of Cambridge that had a little dog as its icon? Does anyone remember that one? It was a word, something like autonomy, something like that. They were an intelligent agent company that paved the way for a future where we don't need human agents anymore. So, David, you suggesting we won't need human agents anymore?
I don't think that's...
And we'll only need IT managers?
I think you over-extrapolate.
Okay.
But I think there's certainly going to be a place for that type of interaction for sure. And, I mean, multi-stop complex itineraries with many components to it, I think there is intrinsic value in dealing with a person within that. But there's, AI, machine learning, those algorithms are going to be capable of booking this stuff for you, a very minimal interaction. And it's the people that adopt these technologies and go with it in the right parts of the business that are really going to win.
Okay, and Guy, we're talking about the adoption of technology, which you've done a lot of. Are you reaching the limit of what you can do at Gatwick Airport? You told us you've got 2 terminals and 1 runway. Are you running out of physical infrastructure? Is there a limit to what technology can do for you? Well, and you actually say, oh my God, the cases going to the luggage is going out to the aircraft as fast as possibly can go. We're throwing people through security at high speed, and that's it. We can't do any more without building now. Are you reaching that limit?
No, by no means. We've still got plenty to go at. Yeah. We see a pathway to continuing to grow. I mean, the kind of rumours of our demise and our being full are false. We can see a pathway to growing beyond 50 million passengers. I think the pace of technology change is only increasing, it's not diminishing. I think the opportunities are still there new generation of security technology, airspace and runway technology will also, I think, enable us to do more there, be more productive. So by no means, and I would just actually agree with David on the previous point as well about voice and booking and machine learning. There's no question in my view, and it's the same with the airport. We want a 24/7 service in multi-language. We're not going to provide that with people. We're going to provide that through voice and chatbot technology, and also the data that's available. And the ability of machines to understand what we booked last year, exactly what we like, to present us with all the options that they've researched right across the travel sphere for us to look at and pick from and even book for us, I think is absolutely, if the technology is there now, it can be done.
Okay, that's interesting. So, Jose, does Trivago have any plans to go voice? In Amazon Echo, you can actually give Alexa some skills. We're going to have a Trivago skill?
Yeah, I think before that, the most important thing, especially with AI, is if you're using voice search, for example, and you ask, please book me a hotel for WTM, the machine or the bot cannot give you 10 results or 15 results, right? It will have to give you 1 or 2 for you to choose from. And the trick here is understanding for you as a user, what is your ideal hotel?
Exactly.
How can this machine understand that these 2 or this specific hotel is the right one for you? So before, and I also agree that the future is definitely voice, AI and voice, but before going onto this already last step of working with Alexa and etc., which we're also looking at, but before going to there, I think we, Trivago, also companies in general, need to work a lot on understanding exactly what does the customer or your user wants. And the machines will need to, before, be able to provide this. And then you can use voice search, you can use chatbots, you can use...
So we've got a way to go with artificial intelligence. David?
I think what's interesting there is that these are things that come with scale, that come with volume. And the more that the machines learn, the more accurate they become ultimately, because ultimately it is just number crunching. This is pure demographic. So, as time goes on, Google will get better and better and better at drilling these things down. There was, I forget the name of the company, it's a data analytics company that design websites, and they're saying that they can pigeonhole, if you like, for want of a better term, pigeonhole someone inside of 5 clicks on the front page of the website. And inside of that pigeonholing, they then choose the path that they display to that traveller or that person. And that's a very interesting concept, because actually what you're then doing is placing relevant content, or supposed relevant content to an individual based on initial activity. This isn't about looking at a profile and saying, oh, you've got a BA frequent flyers card, so I'm going to give you BA flights. This is about saying, you have chosen this series of things, and that means you fit in this box, so I'm going to show you these things. And that's the key difference with AI and machine learning. It's not about, it's this list, this lookup table in my Excel spreadsheet, if you like, of content. This is about actually
understanding on the fly?
On the fly, supposing what people are.
Okay, fine. And David, I see that top question there. Some case of personalization at scale. Have you got anything to suggest on that? Well, it's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one. I mean, so for corporate travel management, that's a little more difficult because it's more behind the scenes.
Yes.
I would suggest probably for that to be a visible example is more in the leisure space at the moment, but the corporate market is always lagging about 5 to 10 years behind. I'm not suggesting that it's going to be that long before we see it, but things, so looking at content, presenting relevant content to the sales consultants does happen based on profile, but real personalization is yet to come, I think.
Let's close by asking each of our speakers here for a prediction. Let's move forward 5 years or so. And we're talking about the future of technology and travel and hospitality. And maybe starting with you, Guy, whether it's the industry in general or whether it's actually your particular organisation, Gatwick Airport, what do you think might be the most significant technological change that will have taken place in 5 years? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think we'll be doing anything that's groundbreaking in the consumer area. I think we're more followers than anything else. But I think in terms of the sophistication of the use of our infrastructure, when it comes to particularly airfield technology, where we are global leaders in using it and I think generating more, I think that's the place where we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck. I think there are evolutions of our existing process technology in terminals. And for example, the robotics car parking would increase the capacity of some of our car parks by 50%. I mean, that's a massive increase. But I think airfield is where the big changes will lie, and I think the big opportunities lie.
Okay, thank you. Andy, any thoughts?
It's a tricky one.
Isn't it?
Well, I'm actually going to give a shout out to Gatwick Airport as part of this, because I've travelled through there quite a lot, and to see the change that's happened in the last 5 years, and if that keeps on going for the next 5 years, then I welcome it.
So, Andy, you're measuring incremental change rather than a big leap anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a traveller both for business and for pleasure, and the airport for me is the start of that journey, and it's the start of my holiday. And if I'm travelling on business, I just want it to be smooth and slick and seamless. And if I'm starting my holiday, I actually want it to be an experience. And seeing the change in to be honest, most airports, but I've definitely seen it in Gatwick, is fantastic. And I think if we can increase that efficiency, then I'm all for it. Good.
David, any thoughts? You showed us technology through the ages, and you're talking about voice a fair bit.
Yeah, I think. Well, from a technology perspective, Internet of Things for me is going to be one of the biggest changes. So with the advent of IPv6, the ability to place all of your devices and everything online and have those pieces connect is probably the last piece in that connection revolution. Seeing that come through will be very interesting to see the types of distribution that then drives. I mean, are you going to be able to book a flight through your fridge? I'm not entirely sure that's going to be the case, but I do think that type of connect is going to be very, very interesting. And then from a travel management sphere, I think the outcomes from correctly leveraging data sets is going to be very interesting, because at the moment, a lot of the travel management companies that I see put out metrics that are boring and fundamentally meaningless, and I have some quite forthright views on that, and I could talk for quite some time about it, so I won't, but I think fundamentally using metrics in the right way, saying, what are the behavioral reasons behind purchasing behaviors, why do people spend money in the way that they do, are they, is the money that's spent relevant to the market at the point of sale, and being able to communicate that back to corporate so that they can then influence decision and influence behavior, I think is way more powerful than saying to someone, congratulations, you spent 50 quid on a flight to Berlin on a Thursday, which is the kind of metrics that are put out there at the moment. And I think that there's real scope for improvement from a travel management point of view to be able to put something meaningful into the marketplace, and I think that's yet to come.
Thank you. Jose, any thoughts?
I won't risk at the 5-year prediction, because if I think back 5 years, I never thought we would be where we are today. But I'll risk at the 1-year prediction, or not prediction, it's already happening, but I think the biggest trend will be AI and personalization. It's really to understanding your customer, understanding what they want, when they want, and I think that the companies that are able to really fine-tune this with data, with AI and etc., are the ones that will win, for sure.
Good, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Guy, Andy, David and Jose very much for a great session. Thank you, gentlemen. And it's drinks time. If you've got your walking legs on, there are drinks being served at the Travel Technology Theatre. That's in the hall.